What is good, credit people, and welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Bobbalam, exposing the truth about Lil Uzi Vert. He was never real, it's all simulation. In fact, neither are you. You're just a brain and nervous system drenched in a bath full of purple flurp that's hooked into a supercomputer and running constant programs of simulation. Why do you think Uzi had to perform a virtual concert? Because his code is running dry. But aside from all that, because Uzi was never actually real, neither were the label issues he allegedly had prior to the Eternal Atake release that caused an over 2-year delay, according to an insider source. Now, he may have had specific times he was mad at the label or the Generation Now executives such as DJ Drama, but according to an insider source that I mentioned just now, that will remain anonymous. There were actually never any prolonged issues that made Uzi cut off all of his early producers and collaborators, as fans previously thought were the reasons he was never dropping any of the music he was sitting on in the vault. So without further ado, the truth about Lil Uzi Vert's label issues from both Uzi and his label's perspective. Let's talk about it. Okay, so before we begin, as I mentioned earlier, the new information I will be presenting is directly from someone within Uzi's label, but I cannot expose their identity. With that being said though, it should also tell us to heed a warning of caution, considering the intel could likely be somewhat biased given it wasn't directly from Uzi, and there can always be specific narratives attempting to be pushed. That goes for Uzi too though, for according to Uzi, in between 2017 and 2019, he was at odds with the label because they wouldn't let him release music or weren't paying him enough or whatever it was, so it would make sense that the label would claim there were no issues in order to save their reputation and thus be able to sign artists in the future to profit from, just like Uzi. But on the other hand, Uzi was pushing his own narrative to the fans to earn and hold their support during the Eternal Atake waiting period. Therefore, in the next couple of sections in the video, we'll be reviewing both sides of the alleged label conflict, wherein I expect the truth of the matter to actually exist somewhere between the two sides. Now, I'm sure most of you are already aware of many of the details from Uzi's perspective of the label issues, since, well, he was very public with it, even unofficially dropping a song without his label's approval titled Free Uzi, pretty much representing the fact that he wasn't able to officially release any music for the fans. Although we may find out later this may or may not be true, especially since the song remains on YouTube to this day. But either way, to truly evaluate the situation, I thought we should review Uzi's perspective before hearing the label statements in the next section of the video. Essentially, the conflict with the label started to become public in early 2017, soon after Uzi uploaded EXO Tour Life to SoundCloud, along with a couple other songs on Love Is Rage 1.5, I believe to hold us over until Love Is Rage 2 released later that year. On March 2nd of 2017, Uzi tweeted out to all his young fans and aspiring artists, telling them not to sign to a label because they'll ultimately mess with your release schedule. It won't let you drop the songs you want since they have to clear them all first and forced under contract. Shortly afterwards, when EXO Tour Life actually hit all major streaming platforms a month after its debut on SoundCloud, blogs and media outlets in general began to cover a story that Generation Now, Uzi's label, was taking an unfair percentage of the earnings from the single. More specifically, Uzi only took home $900,000 out of the $3.6 million earned at the time of the publications. Although in all reality, 25% is not bad considering how much money and promotion Atlantic and Generation Now allocated behind the single. Not to mention, this royalty percentage for a major label artist is actually more so on the high end, especially when factoring in songwriting among other collaborators. Either way though, throughout the next couple of following years up until the end of 2019, Uzi would take shots at Don Cannon, actually mostly DJ Drama, several times, the executives of Generation Now, reiterating a few things such as being old heads and not knowing how dropping music works anymore in the age of social media, being snakes in general, and needing Uzi to release music in order to pay their own bills, which in my opinion is already starting to seem a bit contradictory, in that how can a label at the same time not let an artist release music but also want them to release more music in order to make money? Doesn't really make sense. But I'll give Uzi the benefit of the doubt and interpret it as the label not clearing the specific songs he wants to release rather than not letting him release at all, also leading to the belief of the demise of the legendary Don Cannon Lil Uzi Vert producer artist duo that made history with countless hits on Love Is Rage, Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World 1, and the Perfect Love tape thought to never return again. The beef between the label again dies down a bit, for in mid-2018, Lil Uzi Vert announces Eternal Atake, the next album to release almost 2 years later. But during that time period is when the beef between Uzi and his label gets real, and that Uzi even threatens to quit music on his Instagram story, in fact claiming on Instagram Live that he quit recording music altogether because he can't release any of the old music he's had in the vault anyway. Mind you, Uzi, I believe, only officially released one solo song in 2018 titled New Patek that was long overdue after firstly being previewed months prior. And in 2019, the Uzi drought wasn't much better for fans, wherein he only dropped 3 solo tracks, namely Sanguine Paradise, That's a Rack, and Futsal Shuffle. Although Futsal Shuffle was a different story since that was the beginning of the Eternal Atake rollout, but still the point remains, Uzi was apparently limited in his releases. In fact, one of the primary reasons that fans believe Uzi was even able to officially release the first 2 tracks just mentioned was because Uzi went behind the label's back, exposing them with his free Uzi music video exclusive to YouTube less than a month earlier. But even after the releases of the 2 singles, the issues still weren't resolved, for in late 2019, the label beef reaches its climax, causing Uzi to finally sign to Roc Nation Management in early 2020, led by Jay-Z, in order to assist him on the legal side of releasing music whenever he wants, such as Eternal Atake and Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World 2 that dropped only months later. But remember, this is what Lil Uzi Vert has directly publicized to us, for there are always 2 sides to a story, and the other side is honestly claiming something much different in its details. And finally, the new information, well, actually perhaps not so new, because DJ Drama and Don Cannon were pretty vocal throughout the time period in which Uzi would diss them on social media, but they really only got a few points in with the rampant Uzi fanbase ready and willing to back up Uzi at all costs. By the way, I'm in no way taking sides here. As I said, I believe the truth resides somewhere in the middle between the 2 parties, as with most disagreements. I'm just glad Uzi is back to dropping music frequently, but not too frequently. You hear that, Uzi? Make sure they some bangers. But as I was saying, someone from inside Uzi's label claims there were never actually any large issues at all between Uzi and the label. It was all simply a lie told to fans to better explain the wait for music, for Uzi was in rather full control of the release schedule. He could drop whenever he wanted. Some glimpses of this side of the story were witnessed via Don Cannon and DJ Drama's responses on social media to the hate from fans waiting on Eternal Atake, such as DJ Drama's comment on Academic's post stating, "Uzi should put EA out tomorrow or any day he wants. He has me and Cannon's total support and blessings to drop it." Who really knows if that's true though? I'm sure the situation wasn't at all what it seemed online from either side, but I digress. For the more detailed explanation for the wait and quote beef between Uzi and the Gen Now execs from the label's perspective, simply claim that the only reason Uzi and Don Cannon stopped working together in 2018 was because Uzi moved back to Philly and was primarily in the studio with the Working on Dying producer collective that produced for most of Eternal Atake. And in other words, there was no beef between Uzi and Cannon. And this difference in location and production was okay in the label's eyes, for they believed it is healthy to work with different producers and try out various styles of music. Additionally, in regards to all the snippets that fans wanted throughout the Uzi drought, the reason Uzi never released them officially was simply because they were never actually finished and or they were leaked and scrapped thereafter. In fact, they said if a song that fans wanted never released, it was solely due to it never being finished. Not even Mission to the Loot was fully finished, as the beat wasn't even completely edited. For Uzi sat on this song among many others for years because he didn't feel like their sound represented him at the time when it was finally ready to release, as he still does to this day. For he may preview a song he's working on at the moment because he thinks it's fire, but as time passes, their interest in the song kind of goes away, and thus they move on to the next song without releasing the one that he just previewed. And even though fans may claim they want a particular song and that it will run up the stream significantly if Uzi were to officially release it, many of the times he and the label have tried to capitalize, such as many of the songs on Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World 2, and then they ended up not performing as fans predicted, so they've learned to just trust their own gut on dropping music at this point. Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World 2 was essentially a gift to the fans, as many of us already know, to satisfy all their requests of old songs he never released, but it will probably never happen like that ever again. But all in all, the consensus on Uzi's label's perspective seems to be that there were no real issues to speak of other than letting Uzi explore his creativity and release whatever music he wanted to. But perhaps, as we discussed a few times now, this is only one side of the story by which we have to mesh both Uzi and the label's perspective to fully understand what happened throughout the past few years prior to Eternal Atake. In all honesty, I think both Uzi and Jen now are telling the truth. But the conflict of the matter is that each party needs the other to be successful, at least to the same degree. But with needing the other brings limitation that is not the most desirable individually. Uzi claims he can't drop music whenever he wants like he used to be able to, but as we've seen in 2020 with a more frequent release schedule that the label has allowed, his songs have not performed exceedingly well on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, as has become consistent in the past as he grew to become mainstream. Therefore, Uzi does in fact need the label to clear certain songs to give him a different perspective on a song that he just created that may, for lack of better words, be trash, or at least won't perform well. Because now he has a lot to lose being one of the top rappers in the game. A streak of misses could ruin his reputation, whereas the beginning of his career, he was free to experiment with different sounds and evaluate which ones hit, even if some of them flopped. It happens with every artist that grows past the underground, even Travis Scott and Drake and everyone, which naturally Uzi didn't like, as it only created more limitations that he wasn't acclimated to just yet, since for years he was able to do whatever he wanted. It's like a spoiled kid with rich parents, and that while they're young they can buy whatever they want, a private jet, a zebra, whatever they fucking want. However, when they grow up and move out of the age of like 18 or 21, in many cases they can't buy whatever they want anymore, or else they'll ruin their lives. As for the label, perhaps they were too restrictive at times on Uzi's creative abilities or desires at times, as with any relationship that has its bumps and bruises. However, they did invest a lot of money into Uzi and probably expected some sort of control in his process, since they were the ones that took the risk from the jump. I mean, Don Cannon and the rest of the label affiliates did in fact help Uzi reach the sound we love him for today, and in the end, a label is a business whose primary goal is to make as much money as possible. So if they see a certain sound working, whether Uzi likes to make that music or not, they might want him to continue producing it. But on the other hand, Uzi being such a talented artist, equivalent to a well-raised child, the parents, aka the label, need to let him spread his wings, as he has also learned much about the music industry throughout the years and what music his fans will like, at the same time creating the music he loves. So in conclusion, the truth likely resides in the middle of both Uzi and the label's perspective, as I keep repeating, wherein both give and take different limitations to produce the best product for the fans, just like any partnership between two businesses. And with Roc Nation managing Uzi now, it only builds a greater team, as another perspective joins the conversation. So with that, it's your boy Bobbalam signing off. Not signing to myself, because that dude Bobbalam seems like a fucking lame. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Uzi's previous label conflict. Make sure to like and subscribe while you're at it for the latest hip-hop news, drama, and analysis videos, as well as to follow me on all my socials in the description to join the Bob Gang if you with it. Peace out, cut it, people. Know what I'm saying?